how does a living computer function differently in that sense?
So for now we have just prototype and we managed to store 1 bit of information, so it's very early stage of development, but we can have some idea about the energy efficiency of neurons when we look at the human brain, because human brain is built also from living neurons, and there are some comparisons in the literature which is independent from us, which says that neurons are 1 million times more energy efficient. And for example, if you would like to simulate all the process which happen in the human brain, you would need a small nuclear plant, but don't need that. We just can run a whole day on a banana. So you can see that neurons are using much less energy.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. I'm your AI host, Mark Verbenkov's deepfake avatar, and this is episode number 212. This episode dives into the emerging world of biocomputing, a field exploring how living neurons can serve as powerful, energy-efficient processors capable of learning, adapting, and solving complex problems in entirely new ways. The conversation traces how this field developed from early entrepreneurial vision to today's cutting-edge research happening across a small number of pioneering companies worldwide, including groundbreaking work taking place in Switzerland. Listeners will hear about the promise of building central bioservers accessible remotely, how neurons dramatically outperform silicon chips in energy efficiency, and the technical challenges behind training living cell systems to behave like computational processors. The discussion also takes a forward-looking stance, exploring timelines, research milestones, commercialization paths, and why AI integration is essential to accelerating progress. Beyond the technical story, the episode thoughtfully examines ethical considerations around using human-derived neurons, questions of potential consciousness, and how society might navigate regulation and responsibility as this technology evolves. The result is a fascinating preview of a possible future where biological and digital computing work side by side to power the next generation of intelligence. Now, a little bit about today's guest. Dr. Ewelina Kurtys comes from a multidisciplinary background spanning pharmacy, biotechnology, and neuroscience, bringing together scientific expertise with a strong focus on real-world innovation. Her work centers on the development of biocomputing systems that use living neurons to process information, pushing the boundaries of how computers can be built and what they can achieve. She has played a key role in advancing research, patent development, and commercialization strategies in this emerging field. With experience bridging academic research and applied technology, she works closely with global partners and institutions exploring bioprocessing and neuron-based computing. Through her work, Ewelina continues to help shape the future of computing, energy efficiency, and human-machine intelligence.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Ewelina, to join the podcast. Join me today to talk about something I don't think I've talked about on the podcast before, and I think it's a little bit of a rare discussion point in emerging technology in general. So I'm very, very thankful for you to share your time and share your insights on the subject.
Thank you very much also for the invitation.
Yeah. So you're building computers from living neurons. How in the world did you initially get brought into this field of study? Like, what were you working with computers? Were you working with living neurons before? What brought you into this space?
So actually my journey started with biology because I studied pharmacy and biotechnology when I was a student. And during that time, I realized that the most interesting topic for me from all biomedical science is human brain. So I decided to continue with that. I did PhD in neuroscience. I did research in brain imaging, and that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot. And after I've done also some postdoc research, but I always wanted to see what is outside academia. I knew I will not stay all my life as a researcher. I was curious about the life in the industry. And of course, at the beginning, I had no idea what to do. I had no idea how things work. And I was lucky to live in London at that time. So there was a lot of opportunities for networking. And I finally end up in a small company which was doing some medical imaging service. So that was at least one topic which I understood well, medical imaging, because everything else was totally new. And that was great opportunity. I learned a lot about sales and business development. And I also learned about AI, because artificial intelligence is very heavily used in medical imaging for analysis. So I started to explore this topic, and I realized that there is much more beyond imaging, what you can do with AI. And I started to work on commercial applications of artificial intelligence beyond imaging, beyond medical stuff. And that was really cool. And now I work on even step further on the future of artificial intelligence, which we believe is biocomputing. And this is very nice project because it's combination of neuroscience, what I know from research, and engineering and technology, what I know from commercial side. So it's nice combination for me. And Final Spark, what is doing, so why it's a combination of neuroscience and technology, is because we try to build a new type of computers. We try to build computers from living neurons. So we have a cell culture lab, as in biology research. So there is nothing new, but the purpose is new. So we keep living neurons in the lab, and we try to program them. So that's a new approach. We try to program neurons. We want to use them to process information, and in the future to build a bioprocessor, which will be new type of computer, where at the heart will be living neurons.
So interesting. Where did this idea originally come about, biocomputing? Like, I think I've read, I try to keep up to date with everything that's going on in the world. I think I've come across this a couple of years ago. Where, like, who and where did this originally come from? Because it's such a, like, if you take a step back, people that haven't heard of this before, it's a very bizarre, interesting, very cool, thing that we're trying to do now. So where did this first come about?
So actually, there are 3 companies in the world, to our knowledge, which are doing biocomputing. So this idea kind of developed independently. And these companies, one is in the US, Conicu, and in Australia, Cortical Labs, and we Final Spark in Switzerland. So we are happy actually that other people also thought about this, because that means it's maybe not totally crazy. And how it started. So in 2014, Fred Jordan and Martin Kutter, they are 2 Swiss entrepreneurs, and they started a company with the objective of building thinking machine, which is a dream of many engineers, have thinking machine. And they realized after a few years of fundamental research in artificial intelligence, they realized that it costs too much money, that actually making better AI digital is very, very expensive. So they realized that they have to do something else, something totally new to make a difference as a small startup without, too much money to spend. So this is how they started to think about alternatives. And one of our colleagues, actually the first employee of Final Spark, he had some experience already with living neurons in vitro. He was in the lab of Professor Markram, which is very famous neuroscientist. He led the Human Brain Project, so he's also a very, very big figure in the neuroscience. So our colleague had a chance to gain some experience in his lab. And that's why they thought, okay, maybe let's try to culture living neurons as Professor Markram. Why not? And then we developed some collaborations. They learned how to do cell culture, some basic biology, everything from the scratch. And this is how we are now. Today we have laboratory. Actually, we have 2 labs already, but in one place, in Vevey, in Switzerland. And we are trying to program living neurons.
Yeah, this is certainly a different topic. So maybe to take a step back here, also to give kind of a visual picture for myself and for the audience. When you're saying a living computer, like, I have a computer right here, right? Like, I have a laptop, I have a tower. You're not talking about a computer that looks something like this, visually, what does it look like now, and what do you hope for it to look like? Like, what was the ultimate goal for it to look like?
Well, actually, theoretically, it could be everywhere or also in our laptops. Our competitors have this idea to have a portable machine with living neurons. They already made some prototype, which they released recently. However, our vision is a little bit different. We imagine a bioserver. So we imagine a central kind of biocomputer, which will be available remotely. Like today, we can access cloud computing.
Mhm.
And we believe that it's a good idea because neurons, they need very specific condition to be alive, to be in the be healthy. So we think it will be easier to control in the big bioserver. And also, we would like to make huge structures of neurons. So actually, we imagine even 100 meters long structure built of living neurons. So it can be very, very big. So we imagine bioserver. And that would mean that the user can access bioserver remotely. And actually, for the end user, it doesn't matter if there is digital computer or a biocomputer or quantum computer or whatever, that doesn't matter. But just the heart of the machine will be different. And the huge difference will be energy consumption. So what the end user will maybe notice is the difference in the energy bill, or maybe in the bill of using some language model or anything else, because it will be much, much cheaper.
How does that work, right? So, like, obviously, people that pay attention to the podcast and pay attention to AI and, open AI right now, there's, as you said, there's a tremendous amount of energy usage for ChatGPT, right? I think there was, I can't remember the exact figures, but with everybody saying thank you to ChatGPT with the answer, there's some like ridiculous amount of water and energy being used. So how does a living computer function differently in that sense?
So for now, we have just prototype, and we managed to store 1 bit of information. So it's very early stage of development. But we can have some idea about the energy efficiency of neurons when we look at the human brain. Because human brain is built also from living neurons. And there are some comparisons in the literature, which is independent from us, which says that neurons are 1 million times more energy efficient. And for example, if you would like to simulate all the process which happen in the human brain, you would need a small nuclear plant. But don't need that. We just can run a whole day on a banana. So you can see that neurons are using much, much less energy.
Interesting. I have this question about training the neurons, and you mentioned that in your opening. How I mean, obviously, how in the world do you train neurons to do what it is that you want to do? And maybe I'll also throw in there, are these human neurons? Are they animal neurons? Are all neurons the same? I can't remember my grade 12 biology, so please fill me in there.
So training is actually the biggest challenge today. It's currently our next milestone is learning in vitro, because we've built a very nice lab, very robust for doing a big number of experiments. However, indeed, learning is still a challenge because nobody knows how neurons encode information. So that means that we don't really know which kind of knowledge stays behind the spikes. You can have some kind of classification when you observe human brain. You can have idea, for example, which music you think about, or which painting out of 10 possibilities. But you cannot discover someone's thoughts just totally from the scratch, because we don't know how to decode the signal. And this is a big challenge. So this is also a big challenge for learning in vitro. And we are currently working on that. And that is a lot of trial and error. That's why our laboratory is fully automated. So we can run experiments automatically. And usually it looks by in the way that we are writing code in Python programming language. And everything is, of course, connected through the hardware to the neurons, and experiments run automatically. So we send some electrical signals to neurons, and we receive the response, and we can analyze all the data. So that's about learning in vitro. And of course, what we want to achieve is learning plasticity as it happens in the human brain. So in the brain, when we learn, the connections in our brain are changing, the brains rewire. So it's very plastic, and we would like to get the same in vitro. So that's about learning. And when it comes to the source of neurons, well, for this stage, actually, neurons don't matter so much. If this will be animal neurons or human, we believe so, because they are just basic things we try to do. And for many years, people were using, and actually still many labs using rat and mice, but we use human neurons. And we do this because there is a method for which there was a Nobel Prize around 15 years ago, which allows us to reprogram skin cells in order to get stem cells.
Right,
And
right.
from the stem cells, we can get any type of cells we want, including neurons. And that makes all story easier. And actually, that's what the reason why such a project is possible today. Because like 20 years ago, we couldn't work on biocomputing because you would have to sacrifice animals to get neurons from the heads. That was a common practice previously. And today it's not necessary. Today you can just reprogram human skin, you can get neurons without any sacrifice. And that's why we actually can play with such ideas like biocomputing.
That's so cool. So like the ethic. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the ethical issues, but the ethical layers have been removed because of this technology. I can't remember the name of it, but the transfer.
Biocomputing. You mean reprogramming cells? Yes, absolutely. Yes, it makes research much easier, and I'm sure we wouldn't get probably we wouldn't be allowed to do research if we would have to sacrifice animals, because biocomputing is very exploratory idea. So yeah, probably it wouldn't be possible. So at least this aspect ethical of this project is solved. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. Well, I definitely want to touch on the ethical considerations, but maybe a little bit later in the discussion. You mentioned obviously that the energy consumption between a biocomputer and a normal computer that we have today would be different. What are some of the other differences, or is that the main one, or are there other ones that we skipped over?
Actually, that's the key difference. That's what we want to change. That's the problem we want to solve. So the fact that energy usage by artificial intelligence is growing exponentially, and one day it can be a problem. So that's what we want to solve. And for the rest, we would like to just match the performance of digital computers. So we think we just aim for that at the moment. And we think that it would be game changer anyway. Just the fact that you can have hardware which can run with much less energy, that would be huge revolution anyway.
Right. Yeah. I think, many people much more intelligent than myself explain that when you have surplus energy, the entire economy can absolutely explode from there, right? Like energy is one of the key fundamental aspects of, a golden age or even a dark age, if you will. So yeah, I think that's why you guys are focused on that. Very, very interesting. I would also assume that this isn't something that's super easy to do. You mentioned a little bit about the training. What are some of the other challenges that you guys are dealing with? And I'm particularly interested in like the physical, I don't know, the box, the place in which the biocomputer is housed. I'm assuming that there's a number of different mediums that need to be, temperature, pH, everything needs to kind of be at a very stable level.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and the challenges surrounding that? I think that's very, very interesting.
Yes, so neurons, they need a very specific condition, actually as in our bodies also, and they are very fragile to any changes in this condition. So that has to be kept very stable. But I think one of the biggest challenge which we have in our hardware is keeping neurons alive for a very long time. We know technically they can be alive even 100 years because in our heads they stay. Usually the neurons which you have during our adulthood, they are all the same all the time. So we know they can live long, but in our lab currently they can live 3 months on the electrodes. Because in some other condition they can live longer. But when we put them on the electrode, that's actually the prototype of biocomputer. Then they live maximum 3 months. We had one outlier, one bunch of neurons which lived longer, but that was only one. Normally it's 3 months. So this is one of the challenge, because how to do this, how to make this condition stable and perfect so that neurons can live longer. We actually already have some patents for this, but still we want to also extend this time. We want to have it longer than three months.
Yeah, I would assume that you're going to need to have it longer than 3 months in order for it to
Yes.
become a viable product in the future. Is there a lengthening in the time that they're living? Like when you guys started, was it, a couple of weeks and now you're up to 3 months, or was it kind of?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, when we started, it was much shorter, and with time we have built some technologies. Actually, we have patents for that, for some species, to keep them alive for longer. So yes, we have done a lot of progress. But for now, okay, we think that 3 months is kind of enough for this stage of research. But in the future, we would like to keep neurons much, much longer.
And do you have a rough timeline? I know it's difficult to figure that out, but based on where you started, where you are now, can you kind of extrapolate into the future and say is going to take 5 years to get to a year-long lifespan, or is it going to take 10 years? Do you have a rough estimate of that?
Yes, we do have timelines, but that's not only focused on the length of living for neurons. We have general ideas on how we want to conduct our research. So as mentioned, the next goal for the next 2-3 years, assuming we have investor, because for now we are self-funded, and we're looking to investors about 50 million investment, 50 million Swiss franc. And if this will happen, the investment, then we can accelerate our research, because otherwise everything is quite slow.
Sure.
Because small team. So if we have investor in 2-3 years, we want to solve the problem of learning in vitro, as I mentioned, making a basic algorithm in vitro. And after that, for the next 2-3 years, we want to work on advanced algorithm to match the performance of digital computers. And then another 2-3 years would be scaling. So that would be also making them live longer, but also have a bigger structure of neurons, because at the moment we have little blobs of cells, which are 10,000 neurons each, 0.5 millimeter diameter, very small, but we want to make them much, much bigger, and there will be a lot of problems to solve on how to provide them nutrients, how to make sure that they all have uniform, good living condition. And also how to make neurons to live longer in biocomputer. Yes. So
Super interesting. Yeah, I would assume whenever you scale anything up from a t-shirt factory to a biocomputer, there's always other challenges. There's other things that you need to, I guess, figure out in that sense. I would assume you said at the beginning that you wanted was it 100-meter long potential biocomputer, right?
now ideas, why not?
Yeah, why not?
You can proliferate neurons as much as you can. So I believe it's just engineering challenge, how to make bigger structures of them.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, having the kind of right nutrient mix and making sure that the dilution, I guess, is the same throughout that entire 100-meter cube, block, rectangle, whatever it's going to be. Super interesting. You've mentioned a number of times algorithms and AI being involved in this. Your lab is obviously completely automated. Could you touch on that a little bit more? How relevant is AI to making this happen? For a little bit of context, right? So I have a lot of guests come on to talk about artificial intelligence, and obviously the world is just fully engrossed in the movement of AI nowadays. And I get a lot of comments where people are like, oh, well, why are we even thinking about this? AI is going to solve it in a couple of years, right? So I guess my question with that context is, how relevant is AI to the work that you're doing?
Well, I think it's very relevant, and in general, I think AI can accelerate any kind of intellectual work efforts. So yes, we do use it for many things during the research and engineering, and I think it just speed up the work in many ways. So it's dangerous not to use it, I think.
Yeah.
But not only in biocomputing, I think it's any field. It would be dangerous not to use AI.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Should we touch on the ethical situation right now? So I know if I were to skip it, my audience would be yelling at me. So there's I believe it's called organoids, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right?
That's another way how you can call our little blobs of neurons. We call them neuron peers, but they can also be called organoids.
Organoids. Okay. So I had a podcast focusing on organoids about a year and a half ago, so my memory is faint on the ethical considerations. But if that is what your blob of cells can also be called, then I guess everything fits. Could you lay out some of the main ethical considerations or problems that, like, have there been? I'm assuming there's been, like, kind of regulators or the government has been getting involved to a certain extent about, like, what it is that you're doing, because it's a little bit you're tampering with life but not life. Yeah.
So for now, actually, there are no regulations about biocomputing, and I think it's quite normal because everything what we do, what would require some regulation, is the same as in biomedical research. So we just have cells in vitro, and even on the electrodes, cells on electrodes are also used in biomedical research for electrophysiology. So there is nothing really new, and all these problems have been kind of solved. There are solutions. These are quite standard procedures in the lab. So for today, I think there is nothing special about ethics. However, on the future, we get a lot of questions because I think project is inspiring people to ask many questions, and because we become a bit more popular, we get some viral videos about us. There is a lot of publications on social media. Not everything is true always. So people are coming to us from all over the world. They ask a lot of questions. Most of them are fascinated, but few, let's say, are also concerned, and they have some questions. So the most common question we get is about consciousness. Of course, today we cannot talk about this, but in the future you could assume, it's the same problem as actually for digital robots or artificial intelligence, because when the system becomes intelligent, then you start to think, oh, maybe it's conscious. And because they are living neurons, that's why people think about this even earlier. And they think, oh, if these neurons will be used as a computer, what if they are thinking and if they are conscious? So that's I would say the most common question. And there are also questions about the source of neurons, but this, as we already discussed, we get neurons from human skin, so that's quite okay. But for these challenging questions, ethical, like about consciousness, they are very difficult. We cannot answer them because we are scientists, engineers. We are absolutely not specialized in this kind of discussions. And so that's why we reach out to philosophers and we encourage them to do research about biocomputing, because every new technology is bringing new questions. It's normal thing. And this is why we have philosophers to think about this kind of stuff.
Right. How about with some of the other organoids that are already out there? I can't remember. I think that there were, like, smaller hearts, if I'm not mistaken. There were certainly, yeah, there were certainly, I don't know if they were mini brains, but there were certainly, like, brain-like
Yeah.
organs that were created. So are there other kind of, like, ethical considerations around those that can be, again, extrapolated to what you're doing?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, depends. I think in biocomputing, maybe we get much more questions than organoids for biomedical research. Maybe there is always concern about complexity of these organoids. Maybe there are also questions if they are conscious. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
So I think biocomputing brings a bit, let's say, maybe more problems than biomedical, because we want them to process information. We want them to maybe interact with us in the future, like a ChatGPT. And in this case, it will be maybe natural question to ask, or is it conscious? If I can talk with it. So I think we have more problems than biomedical research.
Right.
Of course, yes.
And maybe another question back to, like, the physical look of this, which kind of ties into this. I have this image in my head of this 100-foot long or 100-meter long brain, right? It's just a giant brain in a vat. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's going to look like. What will it look like? And then we can touch on that.
Well, this is a good question. Actually, it will not be brain, and I actually don't like the term, although it's widely used, the brain in the dish, because I think it's not really true. We don't try to reproduce the brain, and nobody really is able to do this. Even people who do organoids, they do just simple it's like a parody of a brain, I would say.
Yeah.
Because the brain is much, much more complex. And we don't try to reproduce brain. We try to build something totally different. We use only the same building blocks. So it's like a bricks. You can build a house or you can build a bridge or something else, but building blocks is the same. So that's why in the lab, we rather think about some abstract structures for a computation. We don't try to reproduce human brain. And for now, we just imagine the huge surface, 3D, of course, 3D structure of living neurons. But for now, it's really science fiction. It's just our dream. We have not arrived yet. Now we work on the small scale on algorithm. And once we solve the algorithm problem, then we can think about scaling to the
Right.
big years.
Right. Maybe, hopefully an interesting question here. Would the structure of your biocomputer change the ability for it to process information? Like if you have a rectangle versus a cube versus a sphere, like would that change the processing capabilities?
I think this is to be determined by experiments. Nobody have tried ever, so we don't really know. It's difficult to say, but possible. Maybe. I don't know. I think also what matters is not so much maybe the geometry, but very important is the type of cells, because there are many different type of neurons. And that's also challenging.
Okay.
So how to combine in which proportion the neurons so that they can cooperate between each other, because neurons are very diverse. Yes.
Could you remind me from my grade 11, grade 12 biology how many types of neurons are there? It's not.
I don't know, but many, because also in the brain we have many different regions, we have different chemicals, and not every neuron is susceptible for the same chemical neurotransmitter, because it all depends on which receptors they have on the surface. It's a very complex environment.
Yeah. So you could, again, looking forward, have different biocomputers with different types of combinations of neurons. And they yeah.
Nobody asked for this, yes, but actually when I hear that, yes, I think it's possible. Yes, it's possible. Why not?
Could, again, this is all kind of theoretical here, but would there be potentially like a biocomputer for processing, another one for, I don't know, different type of analytical thinking? Like, again, I'm coming at this from a grade 12 biology studies that, I've clearly forgotten, but would different types of biocomputers be more compatible to do different types of activities based
I
on
think
yeah.
Sorry, I think it's possible, but again, we would have to try in practice. Yes,
Try.
theoretically it's possible.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, I really want to touch on the future of this discussion. Are there any other things that I should be asking you that you think are interesting that we haven't touched on?
Maybe one interesting thing is that our lab is, as I mentioned, is fully automated, and it's also remotely. We have done this initially because of the COVID to make life of our engineers easier. But later we decided to use this opportunity to invite some universities for collaboration. So we have selected 9 universities from 34 who had submitted some projects. And the scientists from all over the world, they can access our lab remotely, do some experiments. And also we have first clients who pay us to access our lab. So this is very nice. It's side effect of our work. We have not planned this, and it's not kind of like final goal. But it's funny because we are already making some money, although
Yeah, well,
yes.
what are these clients paying you to do? Like they're just doing different kinds of experiments. They're like
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes, they pay us to get access to our lab
Yeah.
and have possibility to do some kind of basic fundamental experiments on how neurons are processing signals.
Are these universities? Are these private entities? Can you say?
Actually, the customers who pay are mixed. So there are big companies, startups, individuals, and also universities.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, and if it's done remotely, it's kind of a perfect. I mean, It's a perfect business model, to be honest. That's great. Super.
No, actually, it's remote, but still there is a lot of work for us because actually we have to keep the lab running. So actually, it's.
But don't you have a bunch of robots taking care of your lab already? No, not yet. Super interesting. Yeah, I guess that's the laboratory of the future. I've had a couple guests come on and talk about that. It's fully automated,
Yes,
dark labs, just like we have starting like dark warehouses, dark factories. I mean, we could have a whole potential episode just on that. Really interesting stuff going on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the future here. You said the main goal is to reduce the energy consumption of computing in general. You want to have essentially large servers, so it's supporting, potentially taking over the computation for cloud computing. You have one of your competitors focused on personal computers. From my maybe I won't be able to interview them in the future, but my initial thought is that's going to be pretty messy. If you have, a computer breaks, and if it falls down and breaks here, you kind of just sweep it up and throw it away. But I would assume with a biocomputer, it could be substantially more complicated to have that happen or to deal with it. Do you see that actually happening? Do you see biocomputers actually becoming kind of the hardware for personal computing?
Well, as I mentioned, I think bioservers for me looks more promising, but I think everything is possible. I'm sure that one day we will have solutions also for portable devices.
Okay. And what other kind of uses are there for biocomputing? Obviously helping the cloud infrastructure, reducing energy infrastructure, energy usage. Are there any other kind of uses that are being explored right now?
Well, actually, this is quite a broad use because if you use living neurons instead of silicon hardware, you will save a lot of energy. And we aim this for general computing. So we think that actually everything what is today done on artificial neural networks could be better done on living neurons, which are neural networks. So I think that would be very broad range of applications. And of course, when you look at the human brain versus computer, you can have already some ideas that there are things where human brain is better, there are things where computer is better. We are better in complex problems solving with a very little energy. But for example, if you want to do a lot of computations which are repetitive and you want to do them very, very fast, then computer is better. So we think there will be a wide range of applications where speed is not crucial, when there is maybe some complex problem solving, where living neurons will have a huge advantage.
Okay, very interesting. Maybe one of the final questions here. The materials that go into not just building but maintaining a biocomputer, very different from silicon-based computers. There's there's an entire supply chain right now for the computers that we're using nowadays. Would that supply chain have to shift substantially if, say, in 10 to 20 years, biocomputers become as used, or if not more used than the typical computers that we're using now?
I think they will be complementary. And yes, I think there's totally different materials needed for biocomputing than for digital computing.
Okay. I'm probably going to have to go and digest a lot of this information and think about how the future is going to turn out with this. Ewelina, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Are there any other things that you want to mention that again I may have missed? And because I think it's such a fascinating area, and there's only so much research that you can do before a podcast.
I think if someone is interested in the topic, it's nice to check our website, finalspark.com. We have section live, which is very interesting because you can see camera view from our laboratory, and you can see also in real time real signals from neurons. It's not fake, it's not a visualization, these are real numerical data, which actually can be scraped from the website, and if you want, you can use it for some analysis. because these are real data coming from real living neurons from our lab.
So interesting. We'll have your LinkedIn up, the website, of course. Any other, you said social media quite popular, so I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
absolutely. So we are popular on Discord. We have a community there, a lot of technical discussions. So it's good for scientists, engineers. Discord link can be found on our website also. And also on our website, anyone who is interested can submit questions to our team, and we always respond to everything.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Very
Thank you.
interesting, very different type of discussion and topic. So thanks for taking the time to share. And good luck with all the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much for a nice discussion.
Great.
Well, thanks for listening to this week's Future Tech and Foresight podcast. If you like what you've heard here, there are, of course, a number of ways that you can support the podcast. The best way would be to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or give a rating on Spotify, which you can find a step-by-step explanation for on the futuretechandforesight.com website. Alternatively, feel free to leave a comment either on the episode show notes or the YouTube channel where you can see video recordings of the interviews. And finally, if you are part of an organization that is aware of the disruptive and transformational impact that emerging and future technologies will bring and want to know more, please get in touch to hear about the strategic foresight services that we offer and how we can help future-proof your organization and take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities available to survive and thrive in the future.
A lot of future-shocked people and future-shocked institutions in our society are simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.